For all things outdoors, listen to the father of two, the Jesus-loving TV show hosting hairy, true-blood American redneck, Ben Cole.
And listen to the outdoor filming, chef cooking, chocolate milk drinking, John Weismuller. And we are
Rooted Podcast.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Rooted Podcast. Today we are going to dive in to some different fishing tips and tricks. A lot of it's going to come from your boy John because he is a lot better versed in that area than I am. But I have some comments to make, don't you worry. I'm always making comments. So John, let's dive right into this and get started and talk about some different things that we can do to improve our odds in the fishing world.
Yeah, so first things first, just for reference, I'm going to be talking about fishing in the summertime because that's relevant to right now. So whenever I'm talking about summertime bass fishing. Okay. So first things first for me, opening morning, right? Whenever the day starts, the sun's coming up. I like to start shallow early in the morning. So I'm looking like maybe 12 feet or less kind of thing, 15 feet. It's kind of where I'm looking. Usually let's say it's 60 to 70 degrees and that beginning of the day, summertime. Usually I'm looking at, and it depends where I am obviously, and what the weather's doing, but I'm talking, let's just say it's clear, low 70s. I'm usually hitting topwater stuff early in the morning. I'm doing whopper ploppers, I'm doing buzz baits, I'm throwing frogs, and then I'm doing some soft plastic baits. I really like the KVD, what's called a shimmy stick. I love the black lizard from Zoom. Any of those things, the white pearl flukes, any kind of soft plastic that doesn't go really deep, and it's not a heavy lure. It's kind of what I do in the morning, and then when it gets later, I go deeper, and that's because that's what the fish do. They start out shallow, and the hotter it gets, the deeper in the water they go because that's the cooler water. So they don't like being super hot, just like us. So they try to find those cooler pockets, and they usually go deeper. I mean, I've seen fish, bass. I mean, golly bum, 30, 40, 50 feet deep or more, on the fish finder. So it's like they are down in there. And sometimes, you got to get in there, and whether it's with the drop shot or it's crankbait or it's jigging, whatever it is, you got to get down in there and get them. So first kind of tip, start shallow and then go a little deep diver stuff. I wouldn't start out with crankbaits and drop shots and all that right off the rip.
Well, I have a question for you. You just mentioned that the fish go deeper as the day progresses and the heat progresses. So what about topwater? Because I have seen myself that topwater can be really good in the mornings, can be really good in the afternoons, but I'm not real well versed as far as lakes go. Most of the time I've been catching stuff on ponds and, little things like that, using one of the Booyah buzz baits or which is my favorite because I like the clack sound it makes, going across the water, click, 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 click,
Oh,
click,
yeah.
click, 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 click. And man, it works, dude. I've caught a pile of bass on that thing, but I also like little chatterbait too. Those are great. And the white frog, man, the frogs. You find you a lily pad or a grass mat to pitch that frog up on and just work it across. Oh man,
Yep.
That's awesome. So
It's
tell me,
pretty killer.
Yeah, so tell me about the topwater stuff and how it correlates back to the fish going to the deeper water during the hotter parts of the day and all that kind of stuff.
So topwater is temperamental. Okay. So for example, if it's real sunny and open and the sun's just beating down on the water, your bigger fish, odds are you're not going to catch hardly anything on topwater. If you do, it probably won't be big. The biggest, and obviously there's cases of big fish being caught, on a hot day topwater. I'm just talking majority of the time, you're going to be catching those 1-pounders, 1.5, 2 tops kind of deal. But if it's cloudy, even if it's hot, as long as the sun itself isn't just beating down on it, you have a more chance to catch more fish and bigger fish. So, but typically, in the coolness of the day, morning, when the sun rises, and obviously, like you said, in the evening when the sun's going down, that's typically when you have more success. And also, I don't do a lot of top water on just the main channel, like literally right down the center of the lake, because it's so deep there. But that's not to say you can't get a reaction bite. That's a lot of what top water is, like you're saying, the clank of the water, like, it's making such a racket. That's why I love the Whopper Plopper, man. I love that thing. For those of you that don't know what that is, it's literally, if you can imagine a crankbait, it's got two treble hooks, and on the end, it has a little propeller, and the wings open, and it just spins whenever you reel. It just spins, and it splashes water and makes a racket. And man, the fish just tear it up because they're like, I can't take it. I can't take it. I have to try to eat this thing, and I do. I just love it. But typically, that's kind of how it goes. If it's cloudy, you got a better chance, kind of in the middle of the day. But morning and afternoons are in the summertime are going to be more of your prime opportunities for topwater.
Well, that's what I've always observed, and that makes a whole lot of sense to me. So, talking baits, you've talked about the Whopper Plopper, we've talked about the buzz bait, and a couple other things, but my favorite is a worm. And I know what you're about to talk about because every Walmart we ever go into for the past 3 years, you buy every one of them off the rack. And I know why, because they work. But, man, I'll tell you, my favorite worm rig is a Texas rig or a Carolina rig. Those are my two favorite go-tos for fishing worms and, mid to deep water, whatever I'm going to be doing. But, dude, I've caught a pile of fish off a simple worm, man. Just working the bank lines. And I'll tell you a little secret. This may be elementary, but by golly, it works. I don't pop my rod like everybody else does, getting that action. I just reel it real slow. Every now and then I'll stop and then reel up a little fast and then stop. But most of the time, just a real slow, smooth action right across that old bed. Got him, baby!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, man, sometimes nice and easy does the trick, dude.
Hey, man, sometimes it's easier just to not overthink it and just get out and fish, right? So just get out and do it, man. Figure it out and enjoy it, whatever way that looks like for you. But tell me what your favorite worm to fish with is and why.
So I'll give you two. The one that Ben's describing is what I said earlier. KVD, Strike King, Baby Shad, Shimmy Stick. That thing, I've caught fish all over the country. Ask Ben with that freaking bait. Georgia, Illinois, Tennessee, wherever. I mean, that bait just freaking works. Yeah. And I love. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So a lot of times, what I do, if I'm in a pond, I kind of Texas rig it. I just don't use a weight. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, that's not a Texas rig if it doesn't have a weight. Okay, dude, I don't need a big weight in this pond. I don't need it. It's fine. Now, if I'm in a lake and I'm trying to get, trying to fish this point that goes out to 22 feet, yeah, I need a weight. But this pond, I'm fishing the bank. Like, dude, I don't need that. So what I do is I get I like a 4-aught worm hook, and it offsets at the top. I don't like the plain circle ones. Okay, and here's why. Whenever that one kind of offsets, like it kind of makes an L, and then it comes down to make the hook. So I like to put the hook in the worm, pass it through, Now imagine the worm is just dangling off the tip of the hook. Then I pass the rest of the hook through, get it through that L shape, turn it, and then I just barely stick the hook, the barb part, about halfway into the bait. Now you have a weedless worm setup. And that's perfect for a lot of the ponds that I fish, and I'm sure y'all fish too. Is that a lot of the ponds, if you're fishing pads or there's just junk in the pond, and you don't want to get all sorts of caught up. Well, now it's weedless. So um, I was just in, and I promise I'll tell you my other favorite bait after this. I was just in southern Georgia, like southern Georgia. I was like 8 minutes away from Florida, and I was turkey hunting with my brother, and the turkey hunting was going pretty sucky. So there's a pond on this property, and I said, well, I don't know about you, Jimmy, but if the turkeys ain't gonna talk, I'll try to catch a fish. So we went out on his boat, his little John boat he's got, and we went out there, dude, and we had a good time. We caught a pretty decent amount of fish. I ended up catching a 4-pounder with that same lure. I'm telling y'all, dude, it just freaking works. But man, I mean, all I do is I just cast, pretty much as far as I can, or like right against vegetation, and then I like to let it sink, and then I reel, and I do pop it just like a little 1 to 3 times, just pop, 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 reel, let it sit, reel, pop another once or twice, let it sit, nice and easy, and then they just love it, dude. But my other bait that I love, tried and true, caught fish all over the place. As far as we're just talking plastic worms here, I love a black lizard from Zoom, man. A lizard, just in general, just if you take a lizard, like if you were to capture a live lizard and you go to a bed and you release the lizard, it's predatorial. That lizard in nature is going to try to get and kill the fish and the eggs and all that jazz. So the bass, especially the bass that are spawning, are wanting to get this lizard out, aka eat it. And if you can find some bass that are on bed and you throw that lizard in there, oh my gosh, dude, it's just, I mean, it's gonna work. And just in general, just any other scenario, I absolutely love a black lizard, man. It just, golly bum, dude, it just works. I've had it work 100 times, and I have packs and packs and packs of those, knowing that the fish are just gonna tear them up. So though those are kind of it. The baby shad shimmy stick from Strike King and the Zoom black lizard 6-inch black lizard. You can't beat it.
Well, there you go. That's some pretty solid information there, Sir John. You know a whole lot about this kind of stuff, and to be real honest with you, I'm just fine slinging out a worm, just a live worm on a hook and a bobber or a cricket.
Hey, me too. Me too. I love it.
Hey, man. But you know what I really like to do? You're sitting here talking about bass fishing. It gets me excited. You want to know what really gets me excited? Is crappie.
What's that?
Buddy, I love
crappie's fun, man.
Catching me some crappie, especially on those ultralights. Dude, you take you a little tiny minnow, you put you a hook in it with what are those hooks called with the weights on the head? Jig heads or something like that? Is that what they're called?
Yep.
Jig heads. Yep, so I use the jig heads, and then I'm talking about using the soft plastic little minnow or little grub. Oh man, go up under one of them bridges and cast on the pilings. Oh, buddy, let it sink down to the bottom, pull it up a little bit, let it sink back down. Ting, 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 ting. Sink. Got him, baby. And hey, man, look, crappie eat really, really well. And so do brim, and so do bass. And I'll be quite frank with you, buddy, I like eating all of them. But crappie is my favorite to eat above that, as far as the that kind of lake species go in our area. Trout absolutely tops the list for me and stuff to eat. But man, I tell you, I've had some really fun days bass fishing, and I think probably the most fun that I've had bass fishing recently was when me and you went fishing the day you asked your wife to be your wife. So that was awesome, man.
Yeah.
We went and
That's
you
cool.
caught,
Yeah.
dude, you caught like what, a 3-pounder right off the rip. I mean, first cast, hammered. He was like, "Oh, there's a good one." And it sure enough was, and it was a super dark fish because that pond that we were fishing in, super dark water, really good vegetation.
Oh, yeah.
So there's not a lot of light going through the water column to get to the fish and make them a brighter color. So these fish are super dark and they're beautiful. Oh man, they're beautiful. But you got that fish up to the bank, and I thought, man, now that is awesome. Absolutely awesome. And I called
dude.
I caught a little bitty bass. He's about that big. It was fun though.
Hey, it's absolutely, dude. It was still an awesome time, man. I love it, man.
Yeah. We were getting the jitters out before you proposed to your wife there. So.
Oh yeah, buddy, dude. I'm telling you right now, it's showing up crazy, man.
Oh man.
I mean, man. But hey, you mentioned crappie fishing. I kind of want to dive into that for a second. So, summertime crappie fishing. If you ask, 100 crappie fishermen, they're going to tell you that they get really frustrated in the summer.
Yeah.
Like in the dead heat of summer, they get just plumb mad. Crappies usually like a early spring, kind of late winter game. Now listen, you can catch crappie all year round. But to me, it's kind of the same thing. Like first 3 hours of the day, let's say, like 6 to 9, 6 to 10, first few hours.
Yeah.
And then like the last 2 to 3 hours. Let's say it gets dark at 8, you may go out 5 or 6 o'clock. And then of course, just like you were talking, the jig heads, and you're sitting there and you're letting it bounce and you're bouncing it, and then you just wait for that tap, tap, tap. So a little trick that seems to work for me in the lakes I fish. You take that jig head, and I don't care what color it is. I always make it red. Red just seems to work better for me. Now, of course, I've caught them on all the colors, you name it, white, yellow, whatever. But to me, man, just red, and I even do a red eye, sometimes black eye, but usually just for whatever reason, man, red on red seems to really, really work. And then, things to look for crappie fishing. I mean, you're just looking for structure. When it really boils down to it, you're looking for beds, you're looking for structure. If there's a tree in the water, you're pretty much game on there. A lot of people now this is if you're really bougie and fancy, which I am neither one of those things. But I have a buddy of mine. His name's Tom. I've already forgotten the name of it, but he's got this real fancy fish finder that he sticks in the water, and a live scope. That's what it is.
Yep.
Dude, he's got that thing, and I've crappie fished with him. And oh my gosh, dude, that thing is crazy. So now, obviously, you have to know where the fish are, and eventually, if you've been crappie fishing for 50 years like Tom, it's not too hard to figure it out.
Right.
And then, dude, he drops that live scope in there, and you literally, man, watch your bait go down and watch the fish take it, and you're like, oh, there it is, bloop. And it's the craziest thing you've ever, like, you're like, this ain't even crappie fishing, man. I mean, it was a lot of fun. I would do it again. I have nothing against technology that helps you be a better hunter or fisherman or outdoorsman or whatever. It doesn't bother me a bit, but it is kind of crazy when you're sitting there doing it. You're like, this is kind of wild.
Yeah, no, man, that's a great point. I think the better crappie fishing is in your colder months. I mean, I don't even know where to find a good crappie bed, really. I just always try to hit the structures in February, March, April. even into May.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's probably your best time for crappie fishing is that window, those few months there, and call it good.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man, I think that
Well,
is.
and also, sorry there, Ben.
No, you're
Finish
good,
your
buddy.
thought.
No, man. I was just saying, it goes into, like you said, knowing where the fish are, finding the structure, having the correct rod, reel, all that stuff. Super sensitive, little ultralight. You don't need a whole lot of poundage of test on your line or anything like that. You want to be able to feel the slightest bump, slightest little bump, bump,
Exactly.
bump, bump, bump. Yeah. So
Yeah.
go ahead,
Versus
brother.
bass fishing, right?
You want to
Where exactly, now obviously I'm not taking my surf rod out there.
No.
You know what I mean? But it's like, but I'm wanting to me, I like medium to medium heavy action.
Yeah.
I don't like a super long rod. There's dudes that like 7.1, 7.2 rods.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of like 6.6 to 6.9 kind of range.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of what I like for me.
Yeah.
And I it does everything that I need it to do.
Mm-hmm.
My reel, dude, I've got nice reels, and I've got $10 Shimano reels that freaking work great.
Yeah, they all work the same.
And I've got Lose, and I've got all sorts of stuff, and now listen, to me, when reels really really matter, it's bait casters. And that's and in truth, it's because I'm not as good as with a bait caster. I mean, I can cast a bait caster, but I feel like if I have one that takes a little more finesse, it's not really for me. I need one that can give a little, just in case. I don't really set my mine loose, with the whole magnet and the drag and everything. I kind of keep it to where it'll, I don't want it to free spool on me as easy. Obviously, it still can, but I try to give myself a little leeway there. And then it depends what I'm fishing. If I'm early morning, right, and I'm top water, I want a reel that's going to have a bigger ratio.
Mm-hmm.
And I've touched on this before, but in turn, every time I turn the reel, the spool turns more. So I don't want a reel that only maybe turns 1.5 times. Maybe I want one that turns 3 times per turn, and because you really don't have as much time whenever it's top water because the fish has it, and then you want to be able to, because you want to be able to not have slack, because whenever top water happens, whenever it hits it, it's already, before the fish even really has it in its mouth, it's already created slack. So you as the angler, you're already at a disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
Now it happens very quickly. It doesn't really seem like it, but you are. So the faster you can get the slack pulled, the better off you are. So it's just things like that, as far as for bass fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, for crappie, and for, obviously if you use an ultralight, it's super fun, right?
Oh,
you could have a little crappie. It feels like it's a 3-pounder, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I always like light action to ultralight. If I use an ultralight, I use a little bit better of a line. Most of my line I run, we can dive into this. I don't know if you are into all that, but I usually just run monofilament, 10 to 12 pound on my bass. It depends what I'm running. If I'm running crate baits, and I'm hitting a bunch of junk on the bottom of the lake, I may go a little deeper or a little thicker, heavier of a line. But there's people that run like 20, 30 pound tests on, and I'm sure that's great and dandy, and whatever, dude. I just don't think you really need it all. It's kind of crazy. But maybe you have that as a leader, but I don't think you need that on your whole spool.
Right. Right. No, man, I agree with you on that. And, I typically use mono as well until I get in the saltwater stuff. And depending on what I'm chasing in the saltwater, I'll change to braid or a steel leader that a sharp toothed fish can't bite through. But most of the time, man, I'm just using the mono. I'm like you. The only difference is I use 8 to 12, depending on kind of where I'm fishing. I mean, I pretty much know what's in most of the ponds that I'm going to fish, and I'm pretty sure there's no 12-pounders in majority of the ponds that I'm fishing. So, I mean, obviously that doesn't necessarily mean how big a fish you can catch with that poundage, because I've caught big fish on smaller poundage, and it was just a coincidence.
Sure.
It wasn't like I was meaning to. I was crappie fishing and ended up catching a big old female bass that weighed 6 pounds, and I wasn't trying to catch that bass, but that's what I caught. So, and man, at that point, it comes into working your drag and making sure there's not too much tension on the line at any one point in time, because a 6-pound bass can snap 4-pound line like a twig. Just saying. In a heartbeat, it can snap your rod, it can do all that stuff. So what I like to do is just roll that drag back a little bit and just let the reel do the fighting. And then when you start reeling, you can crank that drag just a little bit to really start pulling it in. And when it starts fighting again, let that drag out just a little bit. And that way it can pull the drag and fight the reel itself and wear itself down.
Right. Because, something you got to think about with this whole pound test thing. It's like, okay, what that's saying is if you had line, right, and you picked up something that was that poundage. Let's, for example, if you have 8-pound test, if you pick up literally vertically something that's 8 pounds with like if you tied it to an 8-pound weight and picked it up, like it's supposed to snap it.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to think, if you're fighting a fish, right? It's not really holding the weight per se. You know what I mean? Like it's not holding the dead weight of the fish. So you can get away with a little more, like you say, if your drag's right. If your drag's not set correctly, I don't care what you have. It's probably not going to work out for you anyway. But
snap that line.
Yeah, so it's like I've caught some bigger fish, but on lighter line. But for sure, that's why I always go a little more, just to kind of give you that wiggle room.
Yeah.
But you really don't need it, man. I mean, you just don't, in my opinion. I mean, It's really just having the drag right and knowing how to fight the fish too, because I mean, if you're constantly like, if the fish goes one way and then you totally go the other way, you're just creating more strain on that line for it to snap.
Yep.
Like go with the fish, man, and try to you want to keep your rod tip up, but there's sometimes you got to bring it down just a little bit, and then but all in all, still keeping the line tight and not having all this slack, because whenever it has slack, it'll sure enough spit the hook back out at you. I've had that happen many a time.
Oh man, me too. And I couldn't tell you the amount of times. Well, I mean, just last year I was filming smallmouth, and buddy, I had the biggest smallmouth I've ever had on a fly rod, inches from being landed, and I forgot my net. Forgot the net, John. So Ryan is hauling rear end to get back to the buggy or the truck and get the net out of the back, because I thought, oh man, I'm just going to cast a couple times and I'll just go back and get this stuff. Normal unprepared me. That's how that worked. Dude, I got him right there, and I just grabbed the net. I was holding tension, holding that rod up, went to scoop, and comes my hook. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me, man. The biggest fish I've ever had on a fly rod in a smallmouth bass world, I didn't land it. it was like, dang it, dude, what the letdown. It's just like, oh, letdown.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it was a bummer. Like, I just laid my rod down and pouted for a minute, because I was like, dude, I mean, it's like, dang it, man. Why couldn't I land that fish? Because it was because I was unprepared. That's why. So note to self, always be prepared for everything. And you've mentioned that before. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah, man. But
well, hey, listen, being prepared, you talk about that. If you have a minute, we'll dive into being prepared via boat. I mean, a lot of people will go, obviously bass fishing in their boat, or they go duck hunting, such as yourself in the boat. And I don't think people realize what all goes into having a boat and what you should have in your boat.
Yeah, no, man, I get you there, but I'm gonna stop real quick and make an announcement. So, me and John are headed down to the Tennessee Valley Hunting and Fishing Expo tomorrow. We will be setting up our booth with his dad and his brother, Jimmy Boy, who graciously built this for us and decided to give it to us as a gift. And, we got to thank him for that. We didn't ask for it. He just wanted to do it. And it was awesome, that he wanted to be involved and do something for us like that. So, want to thank him. We want to thank John's mom and dad for all that they do. And y'all come see us. Huntsville, Alabama, booth 172, Tennessee Valley Hunting and Fishing Expo this weekend. Come by, check us out. So let's dive into boats.
Absolutely.
And talk more about. Yeah. So there's two types of things that you need to be prepared on as far as a hunting boat versus a fishing boat, right? There's several basics that are the same, like life jackets, fire extinguisher, a paddle,
a horn, an air horn,
a throwable
whistle.
Oh yeah, whistle.
Yep.
Throwable. You got to have all these things to be legal. You got to make sure your lights are properly working. Your green and red, your port and starboard, your yellow light off the tail of the boat. You got to know all these things. And if you don't know, I'm pretty sure you can Google it, but just type in boater safety and take the course and just learn about how to be safe navigating waterways anyway, because water is no joke. It don't play, and it does not give second chances often. So you have to be prepared for every situation. So since we're talking fishing, John, why don't you start by talking about the necessities in your fishing boat, and then I'll come back in the end and talk about necessities in your duck boat.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So just like Ben was saying, obviously you have all the stuff that you have to be legal. Okay. And I'm not talking like your rods and your reel and your line and yes, you should have extra rods and reels and line and lures and hooks and okay. We got all that. I'm talking boat stuff. Like you should always have an extra plug or two. And you're like, why? My plug should be in my boat. Well, plugs break and plugs go bad. And sometimes life happens and you hit stuff and the plug comes out and you just never know. And I tell you what you don't want to be is stuck in the middle of a pond or a lake with no plug. That's a bad ordeal. So extra plugs, pliers and scissors. Man, for fishing, you just never know whenever you're going to need a set of pliers, whether it's to get the hook out of the fish or you or some sort of equipment. And I would say this too, this probably goes for both, Ben, is extra battery. Man, that extra battery comes in handy. You just never know when life's gonna get you there. And also rain gear. Man, always have some rain gear. I like to keep my rain gear rolled up in a Ziploc in a compartment of my boat. That way it's just ready to go, man. Ready to go. And then I keep stuff like, sunscreen, flashlights, maybe, a couple towels, extra hat, extra pair of sunglasses. And then, of course, I always keep some tools because, sometimes stuff breaks. So maybe some screwdrivers and maybe a little socket set. That way you can work on a couple things there. Whether it's a fuel issue, I always try to keep some parts like an extra prop, an extra prop wrench, um, just a couple little things like that. I even have an extra solenoid in my boat because that just tends to go out a lot on my motor, and it's super easy. It's right there. It's super easy to change. It's just not complicated. I could, if I had to, sitting there on the water, you can change it in 10, 20 minutes. So just kind of stuff like that. Just little extras that's always nice to have on your boat. So obviously you need to have the legal stuff, and obviously all your fishing gear. But other than that, there's other things. And the one last little thing I'll say is I love having like a waterproof box that I keep all my stuff like phone, wallet, keys, all that stuff in that also floats. So it's waterproof and it floats. That way, if something, whatever happens, you're not going to lose your valuable stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. That's a lot of that applies to the waterfowl side of things too. But one thing I'd say that I like to keep in my duck boat is a push pole along with the paddle, because if you get stuck in shallow water and the paddle's just not doing it, you can stand on the back and push your way out of whatever. And yeah, you can get out and push the boat physically yourself with your feet, sure. But if the mud's up to your waist, that's not fun. Push polling's not fun either, but
safe.
No, it's not safe at all, especially when you're in freezing cold water. That's what you got to remember. Duck season, cold water, rough water, because there's a lot of wind usually during the winter. It's super cold and it rains pretty frequently where we duck hunt in the winter. So you have to take a note of that. And I would say before you go out on a trip, you need to plan, hey, this is where I'm going. This is my destination. Let somebody know, drop them a pin, and, have everything planned out for somebody, your wife, your best friend, whoever that may be, your parents, whatever.
Yep.
But also, I would put a flare gun in your boat as well. Because let's say it's pitch black and you need some help. Boom. Shoot that thing up in the air, and guess what? People can see you instead of trying to hear you. Because water or sound travels a long way on water, but it's also deceiving when it's pitch black and you can't see anything. So you have to really, think about those kind of situations. And if you're navigating in the dark, you need to have a really good spotlight of sorts. You need to have a good way to see, to scan the water, to look for logs or different debris floating down the river, whatever you're trying to hunt. And, another good thing to do is to go out and actually run that path in the daylight before you try to run it in dark. So I would run it several times in the daylight and familiarize yourself with it, then go run it in the dark. And that will save you a lot of headache in the long run. But in a duck boat, you got to have Vienna sausages. You got to have Little Debbie's, Christmas trees typically. That's what I like to keep around. And you need to have at least 2 batteries in there for whether it's a mud boat or whatever, man. Because you never know when a battery's going to crap out on you. And then what are you going to do? Just float down the river channel until somebody gives you a tug in? No. You want to get back and get to your family and do those things that you need to do, especially around the holidays, man. You gotta get on back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, hey, man, I'm glad you said that because that kind of reminded me. Always keep extra rope and anchors too, especially for fishing anyway. But
yeah,
man, extra ropes that tie off to something, or especially just docks or whatever. But you just never know. Extra rope for towing, or who knows?
Yeah, no, man, that's a good point. And like I said, back to your point of keeping tools on the boat, that is always a must. And even keeping an extra prop on the boat is not a bad idea.
Yep.
Because that way, if you so happen to bust a prop out in the middle of the water, well, guess what? You can fix it. I mean, it's not too hard to fix that. So you don't need. You just need your the right wrench and get it done, and your prop wrench, and just switch it out real quick. But it's always better to have seconds on that kind of stuff. The mud motors are a little bit more resilient. They have a much better prop than your typical outboard. So they are meant to hit stuff. They're meant to bust through stuff. But I'm telling you right now, an aluminum prop is going to shred in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I wouldn't even use one, man. Honestly.
Yeah, no, man. But that's pretty much what I keep on there. And I will say I do keep some extra decoy line or Texas rigs, just in case one breaks or whatever. I like to keep at least a dozen extra in one of the boxes. And I also like to keep an extra gun case on there, a floating gun case, just in case somebody forgets one or whatever. They have, something to put their firearm in that is floating and will, keep their gun afloat instead of it sinking to the bottom like a rock. Down to the bottom we go.
Yeah.
Nah, man. That ain't no good. But I do recommend, if you are in a boat a lot, put your stuff in a floating blind bag or floating backpack of some sort, because you don't want to lose.
Hold on a minute.
What's up?
Hold up. I just remembered a story.
Uh-oh.
Hey, you should also keep a gun cleaning kit, because if you're like Ben Cole and you dunk your gun for a swim and it don't really work properly, you may want to keep a gun cleaning kit just in case.
So you're talking about that time that the limb grabbed my gun and yanked it out of the boat?
Oh yeah, and you're like, gosh dang it.
Yeah. Well,
the
first story of that, though, John, is, remember I'd ran down the boat trail and was coming back to get you because I was chasing that cripple duck, and I looked back and I was like, I was like, well, gosh dang, where'd my gun go? I was like, this is absurd. I never in my life seen a gun just go missing into thin air. And so I turn around and sure enough, all I see is the barrel and the choke just bobbing.
You got lucky, boy.
Oh, buddy, I got real lucky. I yanked that thing out of there real quick. Opened the action and it just went whoosh. It happens, man. That's part of duck hunting, buddy. But you're right. Keep a cleaning kit around and keep you some WD-40 and some rim oil and all that kind of stuff. You got to have it, man. You just gotta have it, especially if you're like me and tough on your firearms. You gotta. Hey, but that thing is still shooting today, man. I cleaned it and it's firing just fine.
Well, yeah,
it works great.
It's fine. It don't ruin nothing. You just gotta be prepared for those kind of things. That's all I'm saying.
Just gotta keep on keeping on, brother. That's all you gotta do, man. So, but yeah, that's I'm sure I can think of some other things, but that's pretty much the basics on the boat for me.
Yeah, same here. Just kind of basic necessities and a little extras, and throughout the time of your boat ownership, you'll come to find out that you may need a couple extra things, a couple little this or that, and eventually it'll be set up and ready to roll. So
yeah,
that's pretty much it, though, man. You just gotta know your boat, make sure you have everything, plan out your trip, and just be ready. And most important thing, just go out there and have a good time.
Man, be prepared. Like you said, have a plan. And rip some lips.
That's it, buddy.
Yep.
I think you just said it best.
Yeah, we just got to go have fun, guys. Got to get out there on the water and enjoy God's creation. He takes care of the fish and takes care of the birds just like he takes care of you and me. And the thing is we're far more important. And, we sit here and worry about little things and they don't worry about nothing. They don't store grain. They don't worry about clothes. They don't worry about anything because God provides for them and they flourish. So we should do the same.
Yep.
We should just let God be God and let him rule our lives and let him set the course of our paths instead of us trying to do that ourselves.
Life will be a lot smoother once you figure that out.
Yeah, buddy. Well, I think that's about all for me today, John. I've got to finish packing up for this show coming up tomorrow. I will see you in the great state of Alabama.
Yeah, man. I will sure enough will see you then whenever this podcast comes out. me and Ben will be getting all sorts of set up, and y'all need to come see us. Tennessee Tennessee Valley Hunting and Fishing Expo.
Yes.
There we go.
There it is.
I mean, it's going to be a fantastic time. What's the booth number again, Ben?
172.
Is that right?
172.
172.
Yeah, come see us.
Man, it's going to be a fantastic time, dude. I'm telling y'all right now. There's going to be a lot of people there. You don't want to miss out. Also, real quick, at that show, we will be doing a giveaway with all sorts of stuff. That includes merch and other cool things. So, if you want to see it, you need to come on in there and check it out. We will 100% be doing a giveaway. It's going to be awesome, and I cannot wait to show y'all what's going on there. Man, that's pretty much it. Obviously, check out our socials. We are everywhere. Please like, share, subscribe, follow, all those things. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're just everywhere. Also, y'all, there's a new episode of Rooted Television dropping soon, right?
Oh yeah, it's downloading right now, so it should be out tomorrow. It should be live sometime tomorrow or the next day. It's pretty epic. You won't want to miss it. We're hunting turkeys at Sinking Creek Ranch. Don't miss it. It's awesome.
Buddy. So, well, Ben, that's pretty much all I got, brother. You got anything else you want to add?
No, man. Just appreciate everybody for listening, following along, and listen. If you want to support this podcast, we have a store, rootedtelevision.com. We have merch, hats, shirts, hoodies, vests, all kind of things. A bunch of great goodies. Oh, we do have sweatpants, don't we? Huh. Yeah, I forgot about those.
Oh,
yeah, we got the sweats.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, dude, they're pretty cozy. So go on there, order some gear or some grip, whatever it's called these days. I don't even know. But there's one other way that you can support this podcast, and that is by dropping in to our channel, and there is a link that you can support our podcast, and we would greatly appreciate it to keep us doing what we're doing. Well, with that, brother, the redneck is out, and I will see you in Alabama.
See y'all. Come to Alabama.
For all things Rooted Podcast and Rooted Television, and I mean hats, shirts, hoodies, and other merch, check out our friends at CH Lone Star Pro and the link that is in our description.